So you plan in advance. And another part of that is you need to have money reserved to get these opportunities. In addition to sending the manuscript out, which is a fairly standard and relatively inexpensive, although it does cost some money, there are other opportunities for you to pitch manuscripts, and I'll just describe a few of them. In the children's book world, there's an organization called SCBWI, SCBWI. I know that's an acronym that I say very easily now, but probably is difficult for everybody else. It means Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. So SCBWI, there is a Utah-based chapter of SCBWI. There's a national chapter, but the Utah chapter has regular conferences, and the conferences cost anywhere from $100 to $200 for a local conference. They are worth the money if you can at all go to them. They don't cost a lot of money in terms of travel, so they're in Utah. It's great in that sense. You don't have to pay the transportation cost of going to them. But if you want to go to the national conferences, they can be enormously helpful. As a beginner, you should be aware that unless you have a set time when you're to pitch to an agent or an editor, don't be pitching to people right and left just because you meet somebody. Just be an interesting human being, somebody that they would enjoy having a conversation with or would enjoy going to lunch with. Of course, if you have the opportunity to take somebody to lunch, take them to lunch. But again, don't pitch your book the whole time. If they ask you about your book, you're welcome to mention it. Just use good, manners and behavior at a conference like this. But you do need to have money set aside. Just like opening any other business, you've got to have some money ready to spend to earn money back. And I would guess most people are going to spend 5 years spending money on writing before they earn anything back, and it will probably be 10 years before they've earned back the investment they made the first 5 years. So I don't know if you have a rich parent who can help you. You've got to have a laptop, obviously. You've got to have some sort of word processing software. You need access to the internet. I think Twitter's a great place to go to find editors, and sometimes there are editors who will say on Twitter, I'm looking for this. You're welcome to submit to them, but don't submit to them on Twitter. You submit to them in a regular way. I have never found that to be a particularly useful way to do my writing, because I have my own ideas about what I want to write, and if an editor says I want this, I'm not going to drop everything I'm interested in and write what they're interested in, because I'm not likely to write what they're interested in well. But if you happen to have a match, that's great. And I have a story. I did actually sell a book based on a Facebook contact. My daughter wanted to be on Facebook, and I'd never been on Facebook and thought Facebook was boring. So I went on Facebook just purely to watch her interactions with other people, and ended up meeting an editor on Facebook who I'd worked with before and was interested in working with again. And we ended up selling a book over the next 4 or 5 months after I first joined Facebook. So again, these are places where you begin, you make an investment, and you're just getting started in the audition process, really. This isn't even the audition. This is like to get ready for the audition. These are the sorts of things that you have to have in place.
It's like kind of in the X Factor. The first audition really is just like not really audition, it's just like a weed out tons of stuff. Or
yes, that's definitely, but I'm talking about, this is still like before the first submission.
Oh, right.
So yes, it's true that in the X Factor, the first auditions are largely weeding people out, but that's also true of the publishing business. They reject 99% of all manuscripts that are submitted to them. Nonetheless, you still have to go through that process. You still have to prepare for and then submit through that regular process where you would likely, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be rejected. You still have to do that over and over and over again. There's no way out of it. There's no special magic. I remember when I was a writer, when I was trying to break in, I was friends sort of with Lois McMaster Bujold, who's one of my heroes. I ended up writing her a bunch of letters, and she, for whatever reason, out of the goodness of her heart, wrote me back, and we sort of struck up a correspondence. And I ended up asking her to read one of my manuscripts early on. I do not know why she agreed to do that. She was very gracious. She read the first 3 chapters and sent me back some information. But I remember asking her, like, I feel like I'm so close, and I just need a little bit of help, and And I think I somehow expected that she would be able to give me that help. Now I look back and realize that's not what writers cannot help other writers in that way. The way we can help them is to help get them contacts with agents and editors, but really the writer, have to be producing manuscripts that are so good. I used to say this all the time. I have not said this in a while. You have to produce something so good an editor can't say no. It has to be better than the manuscripts that are being sent in by the currently published authors. I think most beginning writers do not understand that. They will read something by somebody else and they will think, oh, I can write that good. You don't have to write that good. You have to write better. You have to write so well that they cannot refuse you. And until you're at the level where you're writing so well that it's obvious to everyone that this is brilliant, you're not going to be guaranteed an in. And the idea that somehow other people are going to be able to help you skip steps is just silly. It doesn't happen. Not in my experience. There's no skipping steps.
Well, this also sounds like that's Brandon's experience. I mean, he wrote 10 books before he got published. Like, these are 100,000.
Right, bigger than mine. I wrote 20, but his are probably twice as big as mine, yes. And I think that's pretty much the way you should expect it to be. He probably spent, 5 years. Like I say, 5 years is about... Because what you're doing is you're putting yourself through college. You're putting yourself through a college called learning how to be a writer. And it will take 5 years, just like it would take 5 years to finish college before you get to the point where you are beginning. Again, it's just a beginning, that you're crossing this threshold. Just like when you graduate from college, people who are in college imagine that when they graduate, suddenly like job offers will start shooting through the walls at them and like life will be easy. But this is not true. Anybody who's actually graduated from college realizes there's often the sense of like letdown, that you've had this idea that if you just finish and you do all this work, and if I just do this and just do this and just do this, and then you reach the end of it and you realize, oh, now you go through commencement, right? Where they say, now you're just beginning real life. You've just barely learned the skills to start being a grown-up.
Right.
But you're still a baby grown-up. And you're still going to be a baby writer when you've gotten your first manuscript ready to submit. So,
Right.
so should I talk about the next step?
Yeah, so the next step, sure, yeah.